everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I don't want y'all to feel no way, but look at it as a learning from a learning perspective. Learning perspective. Look at it from a learning perspective, okay? All right, we're on live. We're on live. So as soon as I'm the only one talking right now, but as soon as we open up the lines, then other people will be able to talk. Can you say hi for me to see if everybody can hear you quite well? Okay, okay. We're gonna try. I'm trying to hook her up here and see if I can get on live. Can you see me on live now, Syra? Okay, you could come on live too. On the chat. That's right. That would yes. 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 Okay. 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 Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So tonight, some of the things we're going to be talking about are Ifa Odus that mention the word women. And I know in the Lukumi tradition, when I search for the word woman in the Odus of Ifa written through the Lukumi perspective, and I'm going to put it that way, that that word presents itself over 1,000 times in the 256 Odus of Ifa. And doing a little comparison to with just one portion of the Odus from the traditional perspective, I found in one Odu alone, the word woman mentioned 400 and odd times. Okay? So that's very interesting. That's a lot of time the word woman is mentioned. So we got to look at it and see what's going on. Why is this word being mentioned so many times? Okay? And so the point of view that we're looking at is how the word woman is being mentioned and what is being said in the Odus concerning those things. We're going to be looking at sexuality in the Yoruba culture as well, in terms of the efforts to help women. It's an effort to help women in the diaspora who are perhaps interested in the African marriage relationship scenario. And so you could know basically what what it's about, the marriage life, how it's done, how the women go through it, and what kind of benefits the women get, like what are they entitled to. That's the other part that we're going to be looking at as a wife in the Yoruba culture. And it doesn't matter if you're a Yoruba traditionalist, a Yoruba Christian, or a Yoruba Muslim. It's all the same. But I'd like to start out at that point first, looking at the the things that are said about a woman in a Yoruba culture. Okay, we're gonna look at that first. And I found a very interesting article. It's entitled uh, "Sexuality: Understanding Sexuality in the Yoruba Culture." And it's this a 2004 article, and it was written by Professor Olugboyega Alaba, and it's from the Department of African and Asian Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. African and Asian Studies. That's interesting. Okay, so basically, in a footnote, they're saying that sexuality is a central aspect of being human, when we know that throughout life and encompasses sex, gender, identities and roles, sexual orientation, eroticism, pleasure, intimacy, and reproduction. Okay? Let's get that clear, because we hear a lot of things about especially about the babalawos. They don't have this kind of sex, they don't do that kind of sex, and all kind of things. Anyway, Sexuality, continue reading. Sexuality is experienced and expressed in thoughts and expressed in thoughts, fantasies, fantasies, desires, beliefs, beliefs, attitudes, values, behaviors, practices, roles, and relationships. While sexuality can include all of these dimensions, not all of them are always experienced or expressed. And that's across the board. Whether you're Yoruba, whether you're in the tradition, whether you're in Ifa or not. Sexuality is influenced by the interaction of biological, physiological, social, economic, political, cultural, ethical, logical, historical, and religious and spiritual factors. Okay, so we got through that. So now, the Yoruba thought on being human as a Yoruba throughout life, right? And this is some of the things that were mentioned. A Yoruba, whether male or female, goes through life as an integral part of his her society. He she plays the roles assigned to he she by nature and by society in order to enjoy being human. Okay? He she cherishes loving others and being loved by others, and abhors alienating others or being ostracized by his or her fellow Yoruba people. Hence the Yoruba adage which says, "Karin kapo yiye ye ni." Two go together in life befits humans as creatures. Yeah? Okay. Now, this gregarious way of life necessarily involves interaction between the males and females in Yoruba society. A male only or a female only society is therefore a misnomer. Okay, sisters, you listen to this. In the context of Yoruba life, that is why male and female toddlers play together in separate Yoruba compounds, right? Adolescents play together in the same manner, outdoors and indoors, as weather and circumstances permit. While adults as well as elders also stay and play together using appropriate games and drinks during leisure. This come this comes after a normal day of toiling together severally and individually to earn a decent living, whereby they contribute their respective quotas to the running of the society. So now this is saying that, even in marriage, right? The marriage is not for them alone. The marriage, the coming together is not for them alone, it's for the society, and so forth and so on. So this is the way how we have to look at each other, and it brings to mind where some people in our different walks of life, are being different people are being like separating themselves. Different people are separating themselves from other people because they are being something of a clan, being clannish. Okay? And when we call clannish, I'm talking about if you're in this ile, okay, this is only for my ile, and if you're not in my ile, you don't have a say. Things of that nature. So that's something that we have to kind of fix. Okay, because when you look at the whole, we're all in the same walk of life. We're all heading down the same road, and we're doing the same things, basically on a basic level. Now, I don't want to bore you too much with all of this, but we're going to get into the meat of our discussion very shortly about the, about the ODUs and what they have to say about sex, what they have to say about women, what they have to say about marriage. and what they just have to say in general about relationships that go on in reference to women. Okay? So I'd like to start with the Lukumi perspective first. Okay? I don't want to waste a lot of time on um, not, talking different things to understand, to help you understand about, relationships when basically you all know. I just want to get to the meat where, the Yoruba and where the Odus, the traditionalists, are saying different things about women. Okay? So, uh, these documents that I'm reading from, there you can find them on Scribe, SCRIBD. Okay, so I go there and I pull up a document. This document is entitled Ifa New to Dawn. Okay, and I type the word woman in. Okay, and from that we have, we have 1054 results. Okay, the first result comes from the ODU Ejiogbe. Okay, and in Ejiogbe, let me scroll up a little bit. In Ejiogbe, we're seeing the word woman here mentioned. It says here, Ifa says to give financial help in order to an older woman. I'm sorry. To give financial help to an older woman that you have probably separated from, that you have separated from, because you two no longer get along. Okay? It says to whom you replace with a younger woman. So if I is telling the person, you had an older woman and you replace the woman with a younger woman. So if I is definitely talking to the man in this instance about a woman. So if I says you replace the older woman with a younger woman, but the older woman has now cursed you. Okay? The older woman cursed you. And because she is going through a great deal of suffering, she feels slighted because you let her go. Okay? So Ifa is telling you as a warning that you should at least try to make this older woman happy so she does not curse you. Not because you let her go, meaning that you have to let her suffer on her own. Because her suffering, she took the suffering to Oromila and asked Oromila for help. So to overcome the difficulty, Oromila charged the person to take care of the older woman. Don't throw her out of the house. Okay? If he meets her on the street somewhere, or if he sees her somewhere and know that she's in problems, he should go and help her with money so she can get her business done. Even if she doesn't want to go back or he doesn't want the woman back. Okay? So this is one instance where Ifa is talking about a woman being, nobody knows how the older woman and the man started. That's the first thing. But the proper thing to do is not because you are, endeavoring to be with somebody else, maybe that's younger, maybe that can have children or all these things, that you should, have kicked the older woman out. But, there's a thing that Ifa says about things like that. It's especially because we know in the Yoruba they have a lot of wives, especially in our tradition too. And that's their custom, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or what, that is their custom, where the man can have multiple wives. But the Odus talk about things like that. The Odus talk about things like that that you know in not in a very positive way either. I'm trying to pull it up right now because it's even tickling me. How we when I talk about it, when I think about what Ifa said about that, you know, it tickles me so much. And but it's no good. And it says something about women too. It brings off a different idea. It says of these ideas about women that you'll be like, wow, that's the way it is for real, you know. So if I says let me find it for you guys just a minute, because it's really interesting, what Ifa is saying about it. How many women brings about a lot of things if you have a certain amount of women under you. Okay. Let me see. Okay, here you go. Ifa says, right? Ifa says, uh, rivalry among co-wives is something that happens. Don't think everybody get along, or because, oh, yeah, I got 5 wives and the 5 wives get along very well. Mm-mm. Okay, and it even talk about it in a way that is a form of sexual violence in the Yoruba society. Okay, it's a veritable form, a veritable source of sexual violence in the Yoruba society. Okay, this is why Ifa, the Oracle divination, advocates for one man, one wife. And that is the ideal situation because, according to the Oracle, it says, and they didn't put which one, but I research it. It says, when they increase to 2, they become envious. Okay? 2 wives, and they become envious. When they increase to 3, they scatter the household. When they increase to 4, they laugh derisively at one another. When they increase to 5, they accuse one another of destroying their husband's fortune. Okay, boy, we're getting up there. When they increase to 6, they become wicked. Oh my God, right? When they increase to 7, they become witches. When they increase to 8, they blame one another. They blame one of their group for the bringing bad luck to their husband. When they increase in 9, they accuse the eldest wife of using their husband's wrapper cloth. Like having the husband under control. When they increase to 10, they accuse one another of forcing herself upon their husband. Woo! I don't know how a man can manage 10 wives, really and truly. One woman is enough to drive you, like, I mean, the man. So you're wondering now, how do the women fare out in situations like this? Especially when it comes to sexuality. How do they manage? How do they manage? How do women manage? And I know many of you women, especially women who are on their cycle, their menstrual cycle. When women, especially if they're living together, they start to regulate all the time when they have their menstrual cycle. It regulates to around the same time, even though it might have been different when they first got together, living in the same household. By the time you look around, everybody is on their cycle at basically the same time. Okay, so the Baba, he got a lot to worry about that. So you see, so those things are very, very, I mean, and we can't go through the whole 1054 Odus, but we're gonna try give another instance. So we just went through Ejiogbe, and we have an instance here. We have another instance in Ejiobe that says, avoid quarreling with your spouse, okay, at all costs. Abandoning your home, avoid doing that. For if you do, and they're talking directly to the woman, if you do, another woman will take your place and you will be living on the streets and die of a broken heart. At best, you will have to share your husband with another woman. This Odu prohibits quarreling with the mother, okay, or with the father of your siblings. Okay, members of your religious family, don't quarrel with them either. The person should not get upset over lack of anything, even a lack of a husband, a lack of somebody. So Ifa is talking to the person here about, those difficulties that in relationships that you go through, especially if you're in a relationship, after a spiritual relationship such as Ifa, and a Yoruba relationship where your husband or the person that you love, or you're and I'm not even going to talk about the tying of the woman to the Ifa of the man, but that's another show, right? But this is something that you got to look at, okay, in terms, and I know some people are going through these sorts of things as we speak, and that's why I wanted to touch on them, to help them make a decision. Okay, so are we going down some more? Let's see. Okay, so some some Odus even talk about the women genitals, and questioning the men not to even ebos that are to be done with the women's genitals, so they would not um run into a problem where they transfer like the essence from one woman to another woman, because those are things that happen too when men have sex with one woman and then have sex with another woman, is not because they wash up and everything. That doesn't mean anything. The whatever bacteria, whatever things that go inside of your skin, right? Remember, the woman, her orifice is a hole, so things that go in there can stay in there, and it can affect the other woman. So the spirits are saying, the person, there's a ebo, where there's water, you use water, and you actually have to, and it's a little bit erotic because it has to do with the clitoris of the woman, right? And you pray the Odu. So there are rituals, there are rituals that can be done where you're doing things of that nature, and so you're putting the ashe that you need to put there to protect the vagina from any infection and things like that. The Ferifun Ifa, because but a lot of people don't know it. Some of the babas know it, but and then it's all up to if the woman is she is open to these things and she understands it, and if she's down to do it, because some of these things can actually stop you from getting you know different types of illnesses, like the infection. You might get what they call this type of infection that you get, a urinary tract infection. It can stop you from getting any other kind of bacteria, especially if the other woman has these things, right? So my favorite phone, Ifa is very powerful. It also talks about in Odu Ejogbe, we still in Ejogbe, talk about the power of the sex, oral sex, right? That Ifa prohibits the oral sex right? On a certain day, on a Thursday, okay? If I prohibits the oral sex on a Thursday, okay, and never to for the babalawo to allow the woman to have sex on top, like get on top of him. Ashe. You know that stuff that women have is very powerful. You know that, okay? Okay. So it gives a list of ebos, and I wanna mention here, right? Because this morning I was talking about this very thing. In looking at the Odus of Ifa from the Lukumi perspective and looking at them from the traditional perspective, that what I found in the Lukumi way, it will it will give you uh, like the cause of the problem, right? And then it would offer a bowl. So it tells you where the EB is or the Osobo is coming from, and like why did it happen, right? And then it gives you a bowl to solve the problem, right? And what I see in the traditional Yoruba way, they do the same thing too, right? But when they do the same thing, uh, they give you the pataki, the story. And it's not to say that in the Lukumi way they don't have the pataki, but they tell you more of the source of the problem. In the pataki, the story is supposed to tell you how a particular Orisha, say Oromila or Batala or Shun or whatever, solve the issue, solve the problem, and what they went through when they had this problem, and then how they went to Ifa and they did a bowl and the problem was solved. So there, sometimes people feel like, okay, but I don't know who the one that gave me the infection. You understand me? Okay, who's the one that gave me the infection? For example, and like in the traditional way, basically they're saying that's not important. What's important is that you do the ebo, because when such and such and such Orisha went through such and such same problem, it's like like a pattern, right? And it's a tried pattern, is a proven pattern that when this happened to them, this is what they did, and everything was well. Okay, and the person was praising Ifa, and Ifa was praising Oludumare and all of this type of thing. You see what I mean? So that's the big difference that I notice in terms of these things. Like, let me give you an example. For instance, here in this Lukumi Odu, we still in Baba Ejiobe, and it's talking about there are two powerful people, right? One defends you and the other one wants to harm you. If it is the woman and she's pregnant and they say that it is witchcraft, then you do ebo so that you do not lose the child and die giving birth. Okay? And then they talk about the woman that likes men that are younger than herself. Right? I don't know, maybe they're talking about me. Anyway, so these are the type of things, right, that they talk about. And it's interesting because in the same Ejobe, I was reading the same thing about different Orishas that, in reference to women, the woman, and how uh, women women also enjoyed younger men because of different things that go on when men are older with their bodies, right? So here now, I'm going to switch a little bit and read for you the Odus from the Yoruba, the traditional Yoruba. And this one, these are from, I'm reading from, this one is from the document by Solagbade Popola entitled Dide Ifa, right? Dide Ifa. And in this Dide Ifa, the first volume, right? There are 416 times that the word woman is mentioned. Ain't that something? Oh boy, let me tell you. So in Dide Ifa, let me go to, okay, page 66. Let me see. Right? It's so interesting. I mean, I really, this one talk about if a woman have money, right? It's a saying in Ifa. It says, it's a short saying, but I'm not going to say the Yoruba, and it's from Ogbe Oyeku, right? Okay, Ogbe Oyeku. So it says, if a woman sights money, her face will dissolve into a huge smile. This was Ifa's declaration to Onigure Agotun when advised to offer Ebo against Ajogun. Now, y'all know the Ajogun is those malevolent spirits, right? Right? Okay? So, I'm going to do the little story for y'all here about this, right? It's interesting. Okay, it says the inhabitants of Igure town had everything, and this is the difference I'm telling you about the Lukumi and how things are presented. You know how when you're in a situation and you go to Ifa, we have these stories that that is called patakis, and we the babalawo, they normally, and the yanifas that are versed, they normally tell you the pataki, or say the pataki, the story behind the whole incident that pertains to your issue. And these patakis too come with the different odus. Like this one is from Obe Yeku, right? Obe Yeku, Obe Oyeku, right? And it says that the inhabitants of Igori town had everything going for them, right? Their land was very fertile, the people were very enterprising, they were blessed with bountiful harvests, they developed their town to the envy of all their neighbors. Onigore Agotun, the Oba of Ogunton land, was the happiest and proudest Oba in his area. Now they're talking, it's about women now, but they're talking about the Oba. So his reputation as a good leader spread far and wide. One day Oniguri had a terrible and terrifying dream. He could not make any sense out of the dream, but he was sure that a disaster of a gigantic magnitude was about to happen in the land. So this worried him seriously. He summoned all the chiefs in the land to a meeting. He explained his premonitions to them, and after much deliberation, it was concluded that there was the need to call an owl for Ifa consultation. So they did. That was the reason why they called the owl mentioned above for Ifa consultation. Will there be peace, harmony in the land? What was the significance of Oniguri's dream? What did they need to do to avert any possible disaster? During Ifa consultation, Ogbe Yekun was revealed, right? And they told him, okay, to do uh, to handle all of these terrible things from happening. You know, all the things you gotta get. He was advised to get the rat, the fish, and the goat, and everything that was needed, right? So the Ebo was done, And they, however, could not see why all their cocks was supposed to be slaughtered and fed to Eshu, and what was the significance of cocks in warfare. That's a whole nother story by itself, right? That they gave Eshu all of these, had to give Eshu all their cocks and everything. But to make the long story short, right? It came out that if a woman signs money, and in some instances, I'm alluding to where the woman and her love for money was part of the issue. If a woman signs money, her face will dissolve into a simple smile. This was Ifa's declaration for Oniguri Agotun when advised to offer Ebo against Ajogun. They refused to comply. Listen, they refused to comply with the advice of the Awo. Can't you see? Because remember, they didn't want to give all them cocks the issue that was prescribed. And anyway, uh, they say, can't you see the matured cocks, which have made the inhabitants of Buguri to become war captives, travelers to Ipo and Ofa. Let those advised to offer Ebo heed the advice. Okay, so they didn't want to heed the advice. So if I says here, if I says that this woman feels that she is superior, is listen now it boiled down to where was the woman of the king, the Oba of the land, right? This woman, if I says that that this woman feels that she is superior to her husband, and for that reason she can maltreat and disrespect her husband as she sees fit. Ifa cautions that the woman's husband holds the key to her failure or her success, and she may come face to face with a sanction she never expected from her husband, which if she pushes him to use the key to open the door of failure for her. So this is where now, the woman is being warned of not disrespecting her husband, not offending her husband, because he can, help, he can save her or present her doom. Okay? 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 So now Eva is telling her about the humility and respect that she needs to offer to her husband, okay, and value, like hold his esteem up, and reciprocate whatever manners he would give to her, because apparently in this Odu, it said that the husband was always a very humble and respectful guy. Hmm. Okay. Okay. And that because the husband was like that, Ifa would go to any length to bring the woman down who does not treat him with respect and humility too. Okay? So Ifa advises the woman now, instead of the man having to do the ebo, she had to do the ebo with the rats, the fish, and the matured goat, the knife and everything, and the lots of money and everything that Ifa asked for. Now, this one is very interesting because I want you to understand this part too about Nana Buruku. That's one of the Orishas in the pantheon of Orishas. So you say here, uh, Buluku, Buuku, Buuku, also known as Nana Buuku or Omolu, okay? And I'm still reading from Dide Ifa, an invitation to Ifa consultation, right? So, and I'm stressing also the difference in the conclusions of how Ebo is done in terms of pointing the main problem out, as I've noticed, is in the Lukumi perspective of the Udus, pointing out the issue, and as opposed to getting to the bottom of the issue via the patakis, right? Okay, and you know, if I don't lie, if our words never fall to the floor. So, also known as Nana Bubuku, which is Omolu, was an extremely successful woman. Okay, remember we're talking about women here. She was very wealthy. She had a large following. She was an Orisha whom many women were fond of. She guided, guarded, and supported many women. Buku, however, did not give women children, nor did not give women children, nor did she take their children from them either. You listening now? She had a following of women. She had a large following, but she was not the one to give women children, and she didn't take children from them either. She simply ensured the protection of women and children. She also defended them against all aggression, particularly from their husbands and neighbors, all drunken and aggressive men who took pleasure in violating women as a way of letting out their own frustrations, would realize that having the fear of Omolu was the beginning of having wisdom. Okay? So this was because she would go to any length to revenge any violence or humiliation meted out against women who were her followers. For this reason, she had a large group of women following her. Membership into her group was forever. This made her even more popular. Many old women would see this as being a sanctuary against their husbands' families. Now, remember in the beginning, I was talking about how the Yoruba, everything is tied to the family. Okay, everything is tied to the family. Even today, where they have, in getting married, you have to go, to the family, present your bride price. You have to, well, before all of that happens, your family have to agree that they want you in their family, that they want you to be a part of their family. So you have to meet, go and like meet them, and and they got to approve you first. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about the husband's family, right? Okay? The woman goes to the husband's family. And if I'm wrong, somebody that is Yoruba that is online need to correct me. But this is what I found to be the custom. Okay? So the woman goes and is presented to the husband's family, and if they agree that she's good and blah 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 blah, then that's when, they get the bride price and everything together to take, and present for this woman to her family. So all her followers, I'm back to this story now, right? So uh, 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 Nana Buruku or Risha Buruku was very, very popular. Many old women would see this as their sanctuary against their husbands who were abusive, right? All her followers were ready to offer any sacrifice that she asked them to do because they knew that the desired results would follow as soon as they did the sacrifices. So, in spite of this success, Buku was unable to have her own husband. Okay? The reason for this was because her reputation as an Orisha who protected and defended women against humiliation, violation from their husbands was very intimidating to most men. Many men did not have the courage to ask for her hand in marriage. Secondly, she was extremely proud, arrogant, and self-opinionated woman. So, she sounds like me. Anyway, besides that fact, she needed a man to become pregnant and bear children. She needed a man of her, to become pregnant and bear children. She found no other reason why she should be in any relationship with a man. She said that's the only thing that a man should be in a relationship. just because you need children. If you don't have the man to, put the sperm, okay? So she considered all men to be too chauvinistic, too self centered for her liking. To her, men needed to be put into their place. Okay, For this reason, she had no patience for any man. She would often be found shouting them down and bullying them at the slightest opportunity. Uh, Men who were in their right sense would run away from her, and she would see nothing wrong with this. Okay, she's like, okay, you run away, okay, that's your business. Anyway, all the same, she needed a man to at least give her children, but who could do this? Who could this man be? She did not need to love the man or be loved back because to her, true love couldn't possibly occur with any man anyway. Interesting. She did not need to respect the man either because no man, according to her, deserved respect anyway. You listening now? She also did not need to follow any advice from a man or listen to any instruction because, as far as she was considered, all men had no sense of direction anyway. Oh my God. This another buruku is something else. Orisha buruku. So then there were only two criteria that the man must fulfill. One, he must be strong and healthy enough to father her children, and two, he must have popularity and a large following of his own. These criteria were what she used before she narrowed her search down to Ogun. By that time, Ogun was living in Saki town. Ogun had the reputation and the bearing of a very strong man. He also had the charisma as someone who could make things happen. This was somewhat pleasing to Buruku. Second, Ogun had a lot of adherents, both males and females. Unknown to many, there was nothing that Buruku set her mind to achieve that she could not achieve. Even though many women looking for compatible spouses would go to her for a solution to their problems, they never thought that she would ever have the need for a man as ordinary women do. That was why they were unmindful of the fact that she needed a spouse of her own. People believing this suited her very well because she did not want any man or person to let alone let alone any of her numerous followers to know what she too desperately needed a man to at least make her a mother of children. Now this is interesting, very interesting. A lot of women come to me for love spells. But I already had my children and everything. I have a lot of children. But okay, so in order to succeed in this plan, she went to the home of the Babalawo mentioned above for Ifa consultation. She wanted the owl to work on this personal project so that it would succeed. She was convinced that she would not be able to live with the shame and humiliation if she were to be turned down by Ogun. So how would she be able to face her numerous followers if this were to occur? During Ifa consultation, Ogbeyekun was revealed, right? And the Awo informed Buruku that she planned to marry a very powerful and important man. Okay, here is the revelation, right? She was assured that she would succeed in her mission. She was, however, warned never to look down upon her man because doing so would lead to undesirable consequences. Okay, here we go. She was advised to respect, love, honor, and listen to her husband when she got married. Now, listen mean obey. Oh, yeah. So she was informed that doing so would be the only way to ensure matrimonial peace, harmony, and success. She was also advised to offer Ebo and feed Ogun as stated above. So she considered the statements of the Awo. The Awo said she could succeed in her bid to marry Ogun. If that was the case, of what use was the ebo that the Awo recommended? Okay, now here comes the question. If she refused to respect her husband, what was the Awo's concern in that? Now she started to question the Awo. She started to question the Awo, right? She started to question the Awo about his messages, right? Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh boy, I telling you. You see, so she's at Ifa. Ifa is telling her, to do X, Y, and Z, and she is not in it. She's not with that, right? She is not with that. Okay. So it's very difficult because now she's not with that, and Ifa, is warning her. So you wonder now what is the next thing she's gonna do? What is the next thing she's gonna do? Hmm? What is she gonna do next? Oh my God. Okay. And so it ended up in disaster. I don't want to draw you off long with this story, but it ended up in total disaster. I'm trying to bring on my guest, and I know she has some things to say, and I think she having a hard time connecting. Let me look at the live and see if what is going on here with her, because maybe she's typing some questions to me and I can't really see. Facebook right here. Okay, Iya. Okay, Iya. Okay. I'm looking to see where you're posting. Go up here. Let me see my dashboard. Okay. You guys are listening to True Talks with Iyaofae, and I'm going to check in with you right now and see if anybody got their hand raised up that they can ask a question. Oh boy, everybody's just listening very contently. Nobody is raising their hands. Uh huh. Nobody has any questions so far. Okay. It's all right. Not a problem. Not a problem. So let's, anyway. So, basically now what, if you've been listening to the short story from Obe Oyekun, you have a very powerful woman, a very powerful Orisha in her own right, and she is, because of her need, she's been asked to diminish the traits that she basically is very popular for. Remember all the things that they said? She's arrogant, she's opinionated, she's, but she protects the women and the children. But she cannot have everything, right? So she herself wants to have children, but she's not, I don't think, at the expense of not being herself. Okay? This is very important, because a lot of women are in Ifa are not being themselves. You only can have one opinionated, and it brings us down to even when people talk about, say I'm a diviner and my husband is a diviner, but guess what? There only could be one diviner in the house of Ifa, right? Right? So who is it gonna be? Okay, and we have stories, we have patakis about women who divine. We have controversies about women who divine in Ifa. Going far, far back, going way back. Even in our present days, different traditions, the Lukumi, Kandoble, all of this, Makumba, everything, and the traditional Yoruba, even in Afa, there are different means of where women are allowed to and not allowed to do certain things as the same as a man does. And we wouldn't even touch on the biggest controversy ever, which is about Oduduwa. Or I'm sorry, Orisha Odu. So, and we even having some people, some Babala was saying that the Yanifa, which or the Iyalawo, the mother of secrets, the Yanifa of Ifa, basically, uh, meaning meaning the woman in Ifa, that that is something made up. We have present day campaign going on that right now. You know, some men think there's no such thing as an Yanifa. Some men in Ifa are saying those type of things. So the woman only she's becomes like a prize. And I want to flip back to I want to flip back to the article that was written about the Yoruba marriages, because um, when you're married in the Yoruba way, there is there is much not much that the woman can do, unless, especially about entitlements, if she is not if this information is not written in, if the information for her to inherit certain things are not written in a will. Okay, if in the event that the husband dies, so in the event the husband die, there are many women that are left without anything. Some of them have to, and this even in the olden days, it was like this. Ain't no way you're gonna write a will either. The husband die, the brother or the next elder male in the family is who inherits everything, including the woman. Yeah, and you watch those Yoruba movies and you think it's fantasy, but it's real thing that have happened. Where the women, she probably was the one to help her husband attain everything that he has. Being a good wife, not at all being like Nana Buruku, not being like Risha Buruku, not being like that. You know, and she helped her man, her husband, attain all these things, and then he dies, and then she could possibly become homeless if it's not written in a will. Okay, okay, or if she herself didn't have the opportunity to amass her own wealth and her own resources and everything that is in actually in her name. If it's not in her name, mm-mm, there's no way she can get anything. Sometimes even when it's in, yeah, yeah, okay, that's the wife, but you're not getting anything, honey. Mm-mm. You know, you're gonna continue being the wife, even maybe for another brother or uncle or somebody. It's interesting, and that was the olden days. I don't know what they got going on right now, but I know a lot of families still practice like that. Okay, and if the wife is gone, then the children, of course, inherit everything. You know, uh, and, especially with the sons, right? Right? They inherit everything. Okay, okay, and this can create a great problem. Okay, so let's go back to our look at me people and our our Odus here, because these the ones that are kind of freak me out, the things that are being said. So even here, they're in Obeo Yekun, this from the look at me perspective. They're telling the man, that he's looking for a good woman, but cannot find her. Okay, and they're saying that it's because of spirits that why this man can't find this good woman that he's looking for. You know, you know. Mm-mm. And when they talk about man, I mean they. So let me go on because I don't want to get on the man thing. The woman, this one is from Oyeku. I'm sorry, Ogbeiwori, and it talks about the woman that lives with a king and has come to see what can be done to him because she now going to Ifa. She lives with a king, right? You listening? And she suspects that he has done witchcraft in order to harm her. Ooh. I mean, some of these odus that really reveal some stuff, man. You know, some of these odus can reveal some stuff. Because I know I've read like within my own odu ikafun. The babalawo has the right to tie the woman, and he like, let me put that in chama, uh-huh, and put her right there and make her behave and do what he want. Oh my God. Anyway, so the woman lives with a king and has come to see what can be done because she suspects that he has done witchcraft in order to harm her. The woman is also pregnant and she wants to separate from her husband, uh, or is in the process of doing so. Eva says the young lady should be very careful. She should be careful because the person that she is seeing is going to impregnate her. Like now it's implying that the woman it could be cheating, okay? And the person going to impregnate her and then abandon her. So she must be very distrustful of men. Avoid vengeance or an embarrassing situation. And it also talks in reference to a woman that cannot be controlled by a man in Ogbeiwori, and she is dominant. She is the dominant one in the relationship. And I've had people that come and get this Odu, and they admit, yeah, yeah, I boss, yeah, I boss him around, yeah, yeah. And they say it's so cute, yeah, I boss him around, like it's because they probably got I don't want to call men any names. Okay, let me stop. Anyway, so avoid being arrogant, and this is Ifa's advice. Avoid being arrogant, being prideful, etc. So that in this way you do not lose your way in life. It's telling the woman that, right? But it's also saying in this Odu that the woman is a child of, they would say Olofi, we talking about Olorun or Olodumare, is a child going, and she's that kind of person, and she's going to manipulate her lover, right? Okay? And she can even manipulate you to fall in love with her, okay? Because of, I guess, that spiritual quality, and I had a strong conversation with my guests about the same thing, where when people, especially spiritual people, when they have a certain charisma, and they have a certain alluring energy, a certain attraction energy, right? And people often mistake that attraction for something sexual, you know but in this Odu Ifa is saying the person is like that. The person can attract and even use that energy for to manipulate another person into falling in love with them, especially a woman. They're talking about the woman in this, okay? And then she's gonna use it to get to avenge herself of any prior action that maybe the person was abusive to her before, and then after the person falls in love with her, then she exact her revenge. Oh my God, you know. But I understand, things like that happen with human beings. Okay. Okay. Wow. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so here now we continue. This is Ogbe Worry still. Ogbe Worry, yeah. We're still in Ogbe Worry, and here they're just talking about the Ebo that would go on for, one of the Ebos, because there are different scenario Ebos that would go on for the woman, you know, to get rid of the negative energy, the araye that's with the person. And they're talking about peanuts and coconuts and, the candles and the rest of the ebo that are basically given. I see they have Ogun mentioned here. But the thing about it is that they even for women, they're offering ebos for women that are lacking love, right? Okay, or for a man who is lacking the love of a good woman, to get women to be more loving. And there's a passage I read. I don't remember which Odu I read it in, but it was by even in, I think it was Ejiobe in one of the patakis that Solabade Popola put out, and they're saying that men have to be warned about the power of women, where women, uh, if they're not showing love, they can turn ugly. That Ifa always entreat you to treat a woman with love and care. That men should treat women that way. But a lot of men are very, 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 very aggressive towards women. And even the very first Odu that I mentioned about where uh, in the story about where the man put aside the older woman for the younger woman. That was how is he making her happy like that? If I always say to make the women happy, make them happy, because they're under, just like how you do the EMEs, the women underneath there, they could be witches. And and you don't want to offend the witch, you don't want to make the witch angry, so you got to try, you do your best to keep the witch happy. you know so here, Obey Worry too, it talks about the woman doing ebo. She's the woman first having many enemies, and even the enemies are threatening her pregnancy, and while she have to do ebo to avoid having a difficult birth because of the wars that are coming against her. Okay. Oh, this one right here. Same Ogbe Iwori, right? There was a time when Oromila was very sad because he did not have a woman to share his life with. He did an Osode and saw this Odu, where if I told him to do ebo with two black hens and one basket with the peanuts, a basket full of peanuts, so that he could find a woman within the course of the year uh, that he can, be connected to. So if I, of course, Oromila noticed that someone was stealing part of his crops, Oromila thinking that it was a squirrel that night. However, instead of surprising the squirrel, he was surprised to find that the thief were two young girls, right? So he caught them in the act, at which time began to beg him for mercy because stealing was a crime, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And he said he would forgive them, but because the crops, instead of um, worrying about the crops, he wanted to forgive them and marry, right? Okay, so indeed it's true. He's gonna forgive them. He forgive them, but rather marry you than to be branded as a thief. So they married, both married, Oromilla. Okay, just like that from the Peanuts. You know, that's interesting. Ifa often, I mean, well, I shouldn't say Ifa, Eshu always get up in the mix and, trick you into doing something that is right for you. Oh, here, the, this will do too. Okay, Ogbedi. In Ogbedi, Ifa is warning the man, right? In order to avoid impotence, to not have sex with the woman when she is on her menstrual cycle. And some men do that. Okay? And it's even, telling the woman that if your Udu is Obedi, I think with your, whether it's your Ishifa or your Itifa, that you must live with a Babalawo. That is the right thing for you to do in order to overcome your enemies and to be protected. Hmm. Hmm. So, in in Odu, we say Ogbedi, Ogbedi. It talks about the man having a woman that is profane. She cursed bad word in her conversations. I don't know. She may be from the islands. So be careful because, okay, that if it prohibits that, so you got to be careful that the woman, you don't get that kind of woman that's gonna be cursing you. I mean, for your Udu, no, for the Obidi, mm-mm, okay, okay, okay. He's even warning the woman of being accused of something she didn't do or being betrayed by someone and accused falsely of doing something that she didn't do in Obidi. So now there's a story about there was once was a woman that begged for Oshun to give her a daughter. This is very interesting. So that she would no longer be alone in the world. She promised Oshun a little thing in return for her daughter. Oshun gave her a daughter, but the woman forgot of her offering to Oshun. So one day, the woman was walking with her daughter along the river when she appeared before her and reclaimed the offered little thing, since the woman did not have anything to give to Oshun. Oshun took her child, whom the woman always called her precious little thing. Okay? So, basically is warning, women to make sure you remember to do the abo. Don't make promises to the Orisha and you forget. A lot of times that comes up for people is they tell them, hey, you owe the Orisha something, and they like, no, no. And then when you look, they owe the Orisha something. Oh, you're telling the man, if you have two women, you need to guard your secrets because, hey, one of them is gonna Whatever you're doing, one of them is going to sell you out. Oh, in Oak Bay, real soon, it talk about where the woman is in a relationship, right? But it's an unusual relationship because the woman is the man and the man is the woman, and they love each other very much, but there's a great deal of spiritual conflict because whoever it is, woman or a man that is being spoken to in this Udu, they have been deceived because uh, leaving your spouse can cost you your own life. So don't leave your spouse because according to the sign of Obey Rosun, your male or female spouse was your female or male spouse in the previous incarnation. I always say, this what happened to me and my husband. And this and this sexual confusion goes to the heart of the current problem because the soul wishes to live its life as it lived it before. So if you were a woman before in the last incarnation, you're a man now, but you want to act like a woman. And if you were a man in the last incarnation and now you're a woman, you still want to be acting like you're a man. You see? Ooh, buddy. Boy, Ifa is awesome. That's all I can say. So you guys, you've been listening to True Talks with Iyaofae, and we're talking about women, as mentioned in Ifa Odu's sexuality and marriage, sex and marriage, and entitlements. And we're bringing this out to people because, in our traditions, when we endeavor to do anything major, especially in marrying somebody or getting in a relationship with somebody or being tied to your babalawo, you you need to know what you're in for. You need to know how is it going to be. Is it going to be well with you? I don't know, especially us foreign women these days. Us people in the diaspora who are endeavoring to follow the Yoruba way and follow Ifa, not being brought up in Ifa. Many of us are following Ifa, and especially the women, we come with another mindset. And I don't know if you want to call it a colonial mindset because, the and the Africans too, they're in the colonial mindset, where women are basically like commodities. Remember here in America how that was too. I remember, spiritual women in general were persecuted, burned at the stake, right? Here in America. And, to be called a witch, even in, it's still going on right now. They're being prosecuted by other religious groups like Christians and Muslims for being a woman, so it's very interesting, you know. I always had the idea because I got initiated in Lukumi first before I went to the traditional side, or I was told that I should follow my roots and do things the traditional way. Um, and that's in my Lukumi Ita that said that. And when you get initiated, especially Lukumi, you're initiated with several orishas. So you receive several orishas at least five orishas at the same time. And each orisha gives you an ita. Each orisha gives you something for you to take with you throughout your life as as guidelines. So uh, the odus also in itself have very specific instructions and very specific things that happen in terms because some odus And according to my research, there are like 72 Odus that actually tell you, listen, you gotta go to Ifa, you gotta eat Ifa now. You gotta Risha, but you need Ifa. You need to be a priest of Ifa, right? So in those of those, I got 8 Odus because of my circumstance. I got 8 Itas because of my circumstances, my lineage. Uh, you know, what they call atare in Yoruba, with pepper, the house of pepper, pimenta, in Lukumi. And they, because Oshun, because I was crowned Oshun, I also had to receive Oya and Aganyu in addition to, Obata, Legba, Obatala, you know, Shango, you know, right? So I had five, the 5 initial ones, and then 3 more added because at the end they found out Ogun was my father. So then, okay, so then I had to do Ogun direct. So I got all these Orishas, and 5 of the Odus that I got say, go to Ifa, right? But how the explanation I got is, well, if you were a man, you would have been making Ifa tomorrow. You would have leave from off the throne and go to Ifa, you know, right? Right? But because I'm a woman, that could not happen. So then what happens to my destiny then? How is my destiny changed then? When the Odu say one thing, but the people say something different. You see what I mean? So these are the type of things, when it comes to women in Ifa, that I like to look at. You know? Okay? Because doing your destiny is one thing, but then when you live, like say you have a spouse, I always believe in that poet, Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran say, listen, you could be as 2 poles standing so close to each other you're almost touching, but you're still individual. You can touch each other, you can but you're still individual, because guess what? When you pass away and go about your business, I might still be here, and vice versa, right? When your life is decided upon, your merits, whatever it is that you're gonna be going through, is gonna be different from your husband or your wife, right? Regardless, not because you're married means that you got to live under the yoke of somebody else's destiny. Yeah, okay. Unless spirit tell you, oh, your destiny is to just be married, have children, and take good care of your husband and wife or wife. You see what I mean? Because some people destiny tell them that they don't tell them go to Ifa. They tell them, listen, take good care of your family. I witnessed that myself. You know, where I'm at a orchard, and this is what the person was told. Is they that's what they're here in the world to do, to take care of their family. Yeah. hmm So these things are very important to us. Okay, I'm getting somebody's raising their hand here. Who's raising their hand? Okay, I'm gonna bring you on. Okay, area code 340. You're on the air. True Talks with Iyaofae.
Lafia, mommy, how are you?
Alafia Shani, how you doing, beautiful?
I'm wonderful, beautiful. Well, I had raised my hand to say that when you was talking about the old ways in Africa and how the woman, when something happens to the husband, how the woman is given to the family, but she doesn't inherit it. There's 2 shows on Netflix that show that exact example.
Whoa.
Section in present day of what you was talking about. The African movies on Netflix, and
Okay.
that's what I wanted. That's why I had raised my hand.
Okay. I mean, you link me back on those names if you know them, Just send me a text so I can take a look at
Yes,
them
I
because
will.
yeah, and it's true, you know. And I've researched all of it. I've gone in digging in trying to find like what really what's the legal thing? What's up? You know, even if you're married through the court, okay? If there's nothing put down in a will from your husband, you cannot inherit anything, even though you may be the one to put everything there. You're the one that was there with your husband, helping him build everything up, and then you cannot put your hand on it because it goes to the family of the husband. Hmm. Okay, so the wife is not considered the family. Oh wow, okay, thank you for pointing that out. You see, so you were getting some confirmation about these things that we're talking about. And just so you know, when people, because I see the woman as being somewhat in a position of servitude, with that. And then when it comes to, imagine you have a home and you build it up and you're comfortable in it, and then boom, your husband dies, and then here comes these other people that wasn't there helping you do anything, and claim everything and receive everything, sometimes even putting you out of home. Okay, that you would be left to go elsewhere, or like they say, go back to your father's house. And, what if your father is going about his business? You know what I mean? And but that's part of their culture, and it's been like that for many, 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 many years, hundreds of years. And when I look at things like that, I would say that it needs to change, because we're not living in those times when women were not industrious, because a lot of the Yoruba women right now, they are business women. You understand? So even if so, and some of them have their own money, so it wouldn't be a problem for them if their husband die, and then they have their own money. And of course, we have our legal system where you could put certain things in writing, have it legalized that this is what you want to happen. But even so, especially in our tradition, not just the Yoruba tradition, not just the Ifa tradition, but i- people got ways of doing things. Like how somebody do you something, you go to the old bear man, old bear woman, quick. You see, it's the same thing. A family member, your husband died, and here comes somebody in the family trying to take you to a juju man or woman, a herbalist, or a tradition witch doctor, whatever, to find out how you can get something from that person. I mean, and that happens across the board. When people die and they have assets, everybody try to get their hands on the assets. You see, and that's the thing that we're talking about. So thank you for raising your hand. Thank you very much and making that point.
You're welcome. Thank you, mommy.
Ashe. Okay. So you've been listening to True Talks of the Fair Fair. The lines are open. Anybody else want to raise their hand, have questions? You can raise your hand. I sometimes in order for me to get my points out, I make a lot of correlations from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, one thing to the next. But I believe it's very coherent, so you all can follow me and see where my points are going. All right. Okay. So I want to go. Okay. Uh huh. Yes. I want to go back to looking at some more Odus. I'm going to go back to the Ifa Dide PDF by Sulagbade Popola. It says here in the same story, the narrative that is being told about Odisha Buku and her wanting to marry Ogun. So the last thing she did was like she had doubts in her mind, right? Okay, she had doubts in her mind after even after going to Ifa, but everything worked out. When I say worked out, she prepared to marry Ogun. She agreed that she would marry Ogun. Okay, so she says to rub injury with salt, right? This I'm reading. To rub injury with salt, why should she be asked to go and feed the Oke Ipori of Ogun? Anyway, she concluded, only busybodies like the Awo would insult her with such recommendations. She stood up and simply walked out without uttering a word, to the amazement of the Awo. Okay? This is what she did when she after getting the consultation. The the wedding ceremony between Buruku and Ogun was the talk of the whole community and its environment for a very long time. Buruku, however, left nobody in doubt as to who was calling the shots in the relationship. Oh my God. She made sure that everyone present realized that she was the person in charge. Meanwhile, Ogun was totally blind to all her schemes and manners. He was simply in love with her. Okay? So he was prepared to satisfy her and dance to her tunes. When he noticed that she had several followers trooping to their house every day in order to find solutions to their problems, he would even arrange things so that she would always have people assisting her. These people would help her offer the sacrifices required by her clients and devotees. Ogun even gave her his steel knife for her to use in slaughtering the animals that her clients and devotees had brought for sacrifice. Okay, nevertheless, everything that Ogun was doing for Buku did not impress her one bit. Oh my God. She only translated these actions to mean that Ogun was simply performing his duties as a husband. What was his duty to Buku? Ogun's duty was Ogun's duty, as well as the duty of all men to all women, was just to make her happy and do all that she wanted. I don't know what you men think about that, but women would love that. You know, all you gonna do is make me happy. Oh boy, nice, whoop-de-doo. Any man who was not okay. Uh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. What we got here going on? Uh-oh, Iya, you cannot call me on this line because I don't know. I thought she would be on the live, but she says she's not getting to come on the live with me. Oh, it's so sad. Anyway, we're gonna see if we could arrange it some other way next time. Okay? So anyway, I'm back. It says, uh, any man who was not ready to make a woman happy and do what she wished had no business in a woman's life in the first place. Ooh, buddy, you heard that? She also believed that there was no reason for any woman to make a man happy because the man would only end up taking advantage of that and lord it over the woman. Oh my God. I mean, what can I say? I mean, these are the dynamics of what's going on right now with men and women. There is, I don't know, because a lot of women, you do your best, you bend over backwards to make a man happy, and then what happens? You know? Oh my. But anyway, let me go on. In spite of all the things that Ogun was doing for her, she could not see any reason why she should cook him food or bring him water to drink or bathe. To make matters worse, anytime that Ogun tried to advise her, she would just shut him down. Oh boy, I tell you, she really had a strong character. It took less than 3 months before Ogun became the laughing stock of everyone in Saki. The other wives in Ogun's household would not believe what was happening to their husband. Those who had originally um, uh, those who had originally accorded Ogun high regard and respect was so appalled that they lost all respect for him. One day, Ogun called Buruku for a discussion in order to straighten things out with her. She could not be bothered. She asked Ogun to come and meet her in her room if he felt that there was anything to discuss. She contented she contented to discuss with him after much pressure from Ogun. She consented, I'm sorry, to discuss with him after much pressure from Ogun. And the only way the discussion could take place was if he agreed to discuss things with her in her room. As soon as Ogun started the discussion, Buluku lost interest. She was so uninterested in what he was saying that at a stage, Ogun became visibly angry. Noticing this, she simply shouted him down. Shout, shout. If Ogun was not satisfied with the testament she was giving him, he was free to go and hang himself, or better yet, throw himself into a lagoon or a well. Oh my God. Really? She had no time to give him better treatment. Besides, he had other wives who could satisfy his silly needs. Okay, so you see where her mind went. She then screamed at him to get out of her room. She cursed and abused him. She ran her mouth upon him any way she liked, in a way that nobody, man or woman, had ever talked to Ogun before. She then topped it off by spitting in his face. Oh my God. Boy, this sounds like a movie. Anyway, by this time, everyone in the household and some of the neighbors had gathered around their home. They could not believe what they were seeing and hearing. This would not be happening. This could not be happening to Ogun. This man standing before Buku could not be the Ogun they know. It cannot be him. It must be him. She then began to push Ogun to get out of her room. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Oh boy. Ogun became livid with rage. Woo, buddy. He began shaking all over. When he finally spoke, Buruku became overwhelmed with fear. I will not allow you to disrespect me in my home any longer. Even if yesterday pounded yam does not satisfy me, one or fill one's belly. Its mere look is not enough to instill fear into one's mind. Who are you? What do you represent? Who gave birth to you? What do you want? What are you looking for? What has entered into your dumb head? What has turned your little brain upside down? What gives you this temerity? Don't you have any fear? Why don't you think? No. Who do you think you are? Can't you recognize your mate? What gives you this bloated impression about yourself and your worth? What are you thinking about yourself? Where are you? Where are your manners? Where is your womanhood? These are all the things. Where is the decency? Where is your decorum? Where is your self-respect? He then paused. By this time, the whole room was charged. The expression on the face of Buluku changed from arrogance to anger, from anger to surprise, from surprise to confusion, from confusion to regret, from regret to fear, and from fear to horror. By the time Ogun was done with her, he had shed all his humanly garment and had adorned himself with those of an Iromole. He then told her, I will spare you my wrath today. Go and remove all your things and move out of my home now. Leave all my things behind. This includes the steel knife that I had given to you to use in slaughtering the animals brought to you. As of today, you will desist from using anything that belongs to me: knives, blades, axes, cutlasses, hoes, diggers, cuddles, and so on. Get out now before I change my mind about you. And as he was speaking, he was shaking all over. Buruku was sweating bullets. She had nothing to blend on her behalf. Okay, she had nobody to plead on her behalf. At that moment, she remembered all the things that the Babalawo had told her. It was just too late to do anything about it now. She blamed herself for overdoing things. She began to pack all her belongings, and some of her followers who were attracted to the scene assisted her in moving her things out. The shame she did not want to happen to her was witnessed by everyone around. It was news in the area for a long, long time. This became a lesson to all arrogant women up till today. Oh my God. Oh Lord of mercy. Ah, yeah, yeah. When Buluku left, she had no knife to slaughter or skin her animals. She therefore began using bamboo to skin them instead. From that time, Buluku would use only sharpened bamboo to skin her animals, since she had been banned from using any knives or anything made of metal which belongs to Ogun. Well, I can't say that Buruku didn't deserve it. The fact that she did not heed the words of the Babalawo in the verse of Ifa brought her to the state and the place where she got, herself into great problems with Ogun. So Ifa's message to Buluku was: when going to pick Ogun as her husband in Saki land, she was advised to offer Ebo. She refused to comply. Buluku says that Ogun amounts to nothing. If she slaughters an animal, she would have any knife to skin the animal. Travelers to Ipo and Ofa, let those advised to offer Ebo comply with the advice, so you don't end up like Buluku. And Ifa is basically saying, like, if I advise a person that have the ODU, um, never to maltreat her husband. She must respect, show love to her man. She must not humiliate him, her husband, in any way. This is the only way that she will have peace of mind and matrimonial comfort. Ifa says that if this woman does not change her attitude towards her husband, the disgrace and humiliation she will bear will be very great. Hmm. Hmm. All right, buddy. I don't know what y'all getting from these talks, but we're talking all these things, and we want people to understand that it's about the actions of women in Ifa, and things that we do and things that we should not do. You know, I fear if we not share. Hmm. Okay, things that we do and things that we should not do. So let me go and finish. I want to leave you all with this, since not many people raising their hands today. It's okay. I understand. Okay, we have hand raise. Okay, hand raise. I'm gonna get you right now. Three, area code 323. You're on the air with True Talks with Iyaofae.
Yeah, good. All right, so you're talking about something called Ifa. I just got here a few minutes ago, and I wanted to ask you about this entitlement that's in your headline of your show page.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm hearing you talk about Ifa and this culture now, I'm beginning to understand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what does that got to do with modern day culture? Are you talking about Africa, or are you talking about America, or what kind of culture
Well, Ifa
are you
is
trying to give with this?
Ifa. Ifa. Thank you for asking the question. Thank you for raising your hand. Ifa is a West African culture which is has spread all over the diaspora. So there are different groups of people from America, from Europe, from Asia, even the Caribbean, everywhere that practice Ifa or follow the culture, the West African culture of Ifa. Ifa primarily is a divination system where through the guidance of a set of rules that we call ODUs that we tend to different things in our lives, right? So in Ifa, of
Okay.
course, yes. So even though, and it's from the Yoruba people, so the Yoruba people, even the people that are in Ifa, is that's called their traditional religion. Of course, um, they have Islam, and they also have Christianity that the Yorubas practice as well. But in the traditional way, all the things, the entitlement across the board, whether you're Islamic, whether you're Christian, or whether you're in traditional Ifa, is the same for the woman who is married into the tradition, who is married to somebody that's part of the tradition, the Yoruba tradition. So for their entitlements, we're talking about what do they receive in a marriage, what do they get out of the marriage in the event that the husband dies, things of that nature, right? So that's where I was
If
going
the
to.
husband dies,
Yeah, if the man up and dies,
oh, okay.
where do the women
What I'm
stand?
thinking of, yeah, yeah. What I'm thinking of when I see entitlement is
Hmm.
when both the man and the women are living, and the kind of mindset that modern day women have today in their sense of entitlement. So you're talking about entitlement about what she deserves after her husband dies. Okay, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a different situation.
Well, yeah, because their customs are different. Even though we in the diaspora follow the same, we're following their traditions, but their customs are different. So we, like, like say we're married and you had something, we built something together, and you're married, and as the wife, I inherit something from you, right? Okay?
Yeah, I understand.
The
Right, I
same,
understand that.
they're
Right, I want.
in their
Yeah, what
tradition. Go ahead.
you
Go
were
ahead.
talking about a certain section of something you were reading that the man's obligation is to make her happy,
Yeah.
but she has no obligation to make him happy. Is that part of the culture?
No, that's not part of the culture. They're talking about in the way how a woman would respond to a man if she's happy. But in the last example that I just gave, you sure that this woman, they gave an example of a woman that was very arrogant, very powerful in her own right, very opinionated and everything, but she did not listen to the guidance of the oracle when it told her, listen, you could get a powerful husband who can do a lot for you, but you got to respect him. And but she wasn't able to do that because she thought she was superior to her husband. You see, and so we're doing
Yeah,
that. And even
yeah. I'm
though,
glad. Yeah, I
hmm
was listening to that tale.
hmm
I'm glad you had that tale
thank you.
because it cleared up some matters there. Yeah, it's a lesson to be learned, not only in IFA but also around the world, where
Ashe,
a woman and a man should actually respect each other, regardless
Ashe.
of whether they're married or not,
Hmm.
understand each other, and neither the man nor the woman should be uppity or try to feel as though the other person has to bend down for that person.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that the man finally, said to her, "Get out of the house,"
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
she was really one insolent woman.
That's
Here she
right.
is living in a house provided by her husband,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
she's trying to humiliate him and trying to make him feel bad.
Hmm.
And if He
Yeah.
said, just get out.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And but in the Yoruba culture, a woman can be put out without even being insolent, especially if the man dies and the
Uh-huh.
next in line comes a brother or a son of the husband that died to inherit everything. She can actually be put out like into the street or passed down as a responsibility to the other man in the house to be subservient to the other man in the house, which could be the brother or uncle or son or whatever. I mean, some other cultures practice like that too. I mean, for a long time, it was like that in Asia. In different cultures. Korean, Chinese, Japanese. The women, didn't have. They were like something of a commodity. So they inherit the woman along with the property. The male would inherit, and the wife, who may have, especially in modern times, been the backbone to help build the house. She may be even a person who was out there working, making her own money, but the house or the properties were in the name of the husband, and then it goes to the male members of the family. That's the ticket. And for us in the diaspora, we're not accustomed to that kind of stuff. The women here, like,
Well,
you
I'm not
know,
hearing them. I know. Yeah, I know. American women are feeling very entitled.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what they have here is divorce insurance. And once they marry, the man's assets at least half the man's assets belong to her,
yeah,
even when they get divorced.
yeah. But
So
that's not
they
like
have
that with the
treated them very
Yoruba.
different.
Oh, well, I'm glad you said that. That's not like that with
It's
the
not like,
Yoruba. In the culture, in the Yoruba
I
culture,
know.
it's not like that. If you don't outright have your own assets, then you could easily be left out. You could easily be booted out, kicked out, even.
What about the will?
Okay, now that's
What
that's
about
the
a will? Can a
that's it.
man?
The will, a will can make, the will can be stipulated that, listen, in the event of my death, my wife gets this or that or that. You understand? And that would be good. But do many people do that? Do many people even have wills in general? People don't even try to write a will. That's why a lot of people, they have to
Well,
go into
here in America,
mitigation, foreclosure, all of this stuff, because no, there
yeah,
was no will. Then people start fighting over the properties. You see?
well, yeah, yeah, but yeah, if a man has, reasonable amount of assets, he'll make out a will because the wife would make sure that he makes out a will. But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
making like
I'm
upper
trying to
middle class,
I'm trying to
like
get
a
my
woman,
husband to make out a will right now, because guess what? Even though my house is on my name is on the house, but is anybody gonna study that when if anything happened to him? No, they're gonna be like, oh no, let's put some paint and put another name.
yeah, that's right.
You know?
Well, you should have you make out a will too. Just because men die,
Exactly,
in the land goes
exactly,
forward,
exactly.
doesn't mean that a woman can't die.
Well, it's true. It's true. It's true. And I agree with that. I agree with that. And assets is assets. Period. When it comes to those things, and if you want to look out for the person you're getting along well, and you want to make sure if in the event something happened to you, they can, they'll be okay, or leave something behind. I say a lot of people even get life insurance. You see, so they don't want, like, when the time comes to be buried, nobody,
Yeah,
everybody's fighting over who's gonna bury you. Nobody wants to do
yeah.
that.
People should absolutely. I know. I mean, everybody should take steps to make sure that if anything happens, that something can come in and remedy the situation. A lot of times people do not do that. But I would imagine in America, maybe in England, France, Germany, more people take pains to do that than probably other countries around the world. But read that tale of, we have women here in America who feel the same way. They feel, well, you're a man, you have to make me happy, and I don't have to do anything except look beautiful. And then they get on the man's nerves, and he throws her out of the relationship.
I hear you. I hear you. Yes, you're making a great point with that, and is this is so true. Our some of our values are skewed, so we would want everything to be good with us and try to get along, but some people really take it overboard, like how you see in the story that I talked about. Some people take it, like I'm Miss and I'm Mr. And then because I'm Mr. I could treat you any kind of way. It doesn't matter, and that, no, 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 you know. But in the Yoruba, is expected for the women to to live, be humble and be, you know, serve their husbands well, treat their husbands well, respect their husbands well, But now you got to look at the scenario where the husband does not do the same for the wife, and then things like that can erupt too, like where it's a big mess because the husband doesn't have any respect for the woman either. You see? So vice versa. So thank you very much for
Yeah,
raising your
never
hand.
been like that.
Say that again.
Okay. All right, well, take care then.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I say, okay, guys, you've been listening to True Talks with Iyaofae, and I really appreciate the last caller, and the question he posed. It helped me to, give a very clear explanation of what this whole discussion was about. And that's basically the root of everything that's happening right now, in terms of even the people that are flocking from the diaspora, to be a part of IFA, right? And especially those of us who don't understand that, as far as you want to go, you can go, but you just got to know what the repercussions would be, or what are the basic entitlements as far as where you're going, in a relationship, in a marriage. But the Yoruba are big on family, and the premise of their whole system for relationships, and especially marriages, you're not just married to the man, you're married to the man's family. Okay? You're married to his family. And with that comes a lot of, different ways of doing things, different from how especially us in the diaspora are accustomed to. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you want to stay online a little bit longer, you can. If you hang up, then you wouldn't be able to call back in. Okay? And I just wanted to go over this paper concerning the sex, and the way Ifa is looked at. Okay? And if I can find it again. Oh boy. Oh. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. Boom, right here. Right. Okay, that's not it. There is it. Okay, here we go. Sexuality in the Yoruba culture. This is the article, right? So Yoruba cosmology, absolute power belongs to Olodumare. I think I read that part. But Olodumare is the supreme being who resides at the apex of the spiritual hierarchy, and below him are numerous Orisha, that's divinities who work for him as specific intermediaries between Eniyan, the human beings, and himself. Both males and females in Yoruba culture have access to power, albeit relatively. However, the patrilineal lineage system practiced by the Yoruba gives apparent upper hand to the males. But in reality, the males derive sexual power from the females, who, in their wisdom, prefer anonymity in most cases. The main idea is that behind every powerful Yoruba man, there is at least a woman, whether she's a mother, a wife, or wives in the case of Yoruba, because they have polygamy, concubines, and daughters. A case in point is that of Oromila and Abo. Oromila, known as the master diviner, his wife is Abo. She ably assisted her husband to properly entertain Mr. Death, Mr. Sickness, and Mr. Eshu, his mischievous guest, in spite of Oromila's financial handicap. For the powerful man to fall, he needs to lose the favor of his female supporters. Okay? This is exemplified by the story of Oromila, and they're showing the worth of women, right? This is exemplified by the story of Oromila and his three powerful wives, namely Omololo, Abeopo, Abeje Eru, and Akurahun Omo Didan Didan, whose preoccupation was to destroy his fortunes. Imagine these three wives of Oromila, and that's like a metaphor. Another similar story is that of Iku. Iku is Mr. Death, and Olojon Bodu, his wife, who collected a bribe from her husband's enemies in order to divulge the secret of his invincibility. There is no known Yoruba cult which have no female representative, not even the Oro Bolrora cult. Now, they talk about sexual fantasies. Say Yoruba husbands to be and wives to be in the olden days were rightly excited about the expected sexual relations, since they were not encouraged to engage in sexual intercourse before marriage. So they're looking for virgins, right? Yoruba children also enjoy sexual fantasies. They play occasionally by imitating adults, husband, wife, brother, sister, in a fictitious married life. Ekuni Yawo, nuptial chants among the Oyo in Ibadan, Oshun subgroups of the Yoruba land address mainly the envisaged problems and prospects of wifehood and motherhood. Promiscuity based on sexual indisciplines is a means of expressing sexual fantasies, especially among males who are erroneously looking for variety. They do not learn from the Yoruba adage which runs thus: Oju la undo, obo were oyatu. What a man enjoys in sexual intercourse with a woman is her countenance. The vagina of a mad woman is not different. Sexual violence, right? And here they're talking about sexual violence is rare among the Yoruba. When it occurs, elders punish culprits accordingly. If, for instance, a married woman denies her husband intimacy, the elders would call her to order or appease her, as the case may be. If a married man maltreats his wife, his elders will correct him firmly, because they know that the wife belongs to the whole family, and alienating her may spell doom for the good image, the name of the family in particular, and their lineage in general. Rivalry among co-wives, and I think I mentioned this before, I might repeat it again. Rivalry among co-wives is a veritable source of sexual violence in the Yoruba society. This is probably why Ifa, the oracle divinity, advocates for one man, one wife, ideals situation, because according to the oracle. And now you see that one wife, Ifa says, Ifa advocates for one man, but the Yoruba is a lot of the Babas, the priests, they have like several wives. I haven't met one that have one wife. I haven't met one Baba that have one wife. They have several. Okay, and those in Yoruba land, they have several wives. Not the Babas over here, because you could get caught as a bigamist and go to jail. That's the thing. And but even if the Baba's there, they marry the women, right? In the religious rites, in the spiritual rites, and even in the courts, like in Nigeria, Togo, Benin, all those West, they have their particular, whether they offer polygamy, yes or no. So the courts are for it, but mostly a lot of the wives are married in the spiritual sense, especially those coming into Ifa and and that culture, the religious culture, the spirit, the traditional culture. So you say when there's increase to two wives, they become envious. To three wives, they scatter the household. Four wives, they laugh derisively at one another. Five wives, they accuse one another of destroying their husband's fortune. Six wives, they become wicked. Seven wives, they become witches. Eight wives, they blame one of their group for bringing bad luck to their husband. And nine wives, they accuse the eldest wife of using the husband to wrap a cloth. And like I said, that indicates that she has control over him. And when they increase to 10, they accuse one another of forcing herself upon her husband. So they go on to talk about circumcision is done by trained experts among the Yoruba for the good of both females and males. Okay, so at one point it's not genital mutilation. So the female circumcision, a circumcision is not female genital mutilation in the Yoruba culture. Everybody need to understand that. It is meant to properly acculturate the female so they behave properly like you. You see now? Who wrote this right now? You see what I mean? What do you mean acculturate the female so they behave properly like human beings? So if you don't get your clitoris clipped off or something, it means that you're not behaving like a human being. Yeah, American women, you're not behaving like human beings. We don't think the women over here. We don't do that. We don't circumcise women. Anyway, it was a common practice among the Oyo, Oshun, Ebanan subgroups of the Yoruba race in the olden days. Nowadays, the practice is dying out in those areas of the Yoruba ethnic group. Okay, they don't mess with the woman stuff like that much anymore. So life cycle and sexuality from the cradle to the grave. Human sexuality affects the Yoruba person. When it is inside the womb, the fetus is given adequate care. If a pregnant woman's labor is short, the Yoruba believe that the baby is likely to be a male who is eager to come to the world, having not much to carry along. But if the labor is prolonged, the baby is believed to be female, who has to be carefully packed and carrying along many utensils for for a proper female life. You see, I don't know. You see this? Okay, but this is their thought. This is Yoruba thought, where the woman carries a lot of burden, right? She bears a lot of burden. During the infanthood, the Yoruba child is called Ikoko or Alejo, a visitor, quest. While the toddler or crawling child is referred to as Omo Arakoro, a baby who crawls. Puberty is referred to as Igbalaga. The sign of puberty is in males among the Yoruba is the maturity of the scrotum eggs. When the two drop down properly in the bags, the boy is one to get ready for fatherhood. If he dares to have sexual intercourse with a ripe girl, the girl's sign of puberty is the ripening of her two breasts. She would be one to get ready to get out of her father's house because her two ripe breasts will attract the males, one of whom will eventually woo her and carry her away as a wife. Okay, this is 2004. Okay, Understanding Human Sexuality seminar series. All right, that's where this is information is from. And during adulthood, the Yoruba males and females play their respective traditional roles necessary for upholding the norms of the society. Every Yoruba person who deserves it receives assistance from peers, friends, and relatives. Excuse me. Um, Special care is given to the Yoruba to the aged both males. Special care is given by the Yoruba to the aged both males and females for obvious reasons. The need to receive blessings from the aged ones, meaning the older ones, and the Creator who has used them to nurture the young ones to adulthood. There's also belief that whatever one sows or shall reap, especially in the context of familial relationships, that how well they respect the older people. The form of expressions of sexuality. Attire is a means of expressing sexuality among the Yoruba. Males use various types of fela, which is cap, to demonstrate to their female admirers their elegance, while the females tie their gele, their headgears, in various styles to attract the attention of their male admirers. Through the use of adornments, Yoruba males express their manliness. One thing they are known for is, in this regard, is the shaving of their heads. They also file their incisors to create a fine gap as they smile to invite the attention of their female lovers. I see a lot of men with the gap, but I always thought it was natural, that all of them are natural like that. Anyway, the females plait their hair in various styles to invite their male lovers and send various types of messages to observers. They rub their bodies with osun, camwood ointment, paint their nails, and crush lily leaves, adorn their eyelids with Tiro Galena, which is Galena, among other makeup to remain always attractive. Yeah, they love makeup, the women. I like that. I love makeup too. Anyway, verbal expressions of sexuality come as a rule in euphemisms. The name of the sexual organs are not mentioned directly. For instance, the female organ is referred to as Ojora Rao Biri, the eye of a woman's body, while the male organ is called Nkan Omokunrin, a man's thing. Oh my God, a thing. Okay. Occasionally, of course, such as in certain festival chants and songs, and in proverbs or aphorisms, what is called obscene language is employed by literary aesthetic effects. Sexual intercourse and the methods of doing it is not discussed openly with children, but it is taught to them cautiously at the appropriate time in closed groups. Married couples also discuss and express it purposefully for procreation mainly. Anxiety is not encouraged at all in this regard. That is why a bridegroom is usually politely kept out of the house while his newlywed bride is being brought in. He would be brought in to meet his wife after the ritual washing of her feet had been done. Illicit sexual intercourse is not encouraged at all by the Yoruba culture. The pleasure in it is like in eating, insatiable. Hence the aphorism, uh, enuko mojo jeri. The mouth does not know I have eaten once. Therefore, moderation, sexual discipline, continence is the rule for a cultured Yoruba person. Magun, don't climb. The magical charm that the Yoruba used to control sexual incontinence is no longer common. It was used to curb promiscuity in olden days in the Yoruba land. The implicit loss which overindulge in sexual intercourse may bring to a person is expressed, taught by the wise elders who say, and I'm going to say the English, the big squirrel is eating bananas, and in parentheses, they have bait on a trap. The big squirrel is savoring the sweetness. The big squirrel doesn't know that it is the sweet thing that kills the eater. Oh boy, oh. It screwed her almost to the point of killing her. It is the body of the screwer that it eventually that will eventually suffer. Okay, in conclusion, they are saying sexuality is central to Yoruba life, both in the olden days and the modern times. The Yoruba culture emphasizes the necessity of experiencing and expressing this aspect of human nature legitimately. Illegitimate sexual relations are not condoned, but they occur as exceptions to the rule of sexual continence. Out of the trio of customary marriage, Christian marriage, and Muslim marriage, Christian marriage is the one that is most fragile and unstable, placing before the offspring of most couples a lot of difficult social problems, both while their parents are still alive and long after they might have passed on. Okay, that's another subject by itself. Although the prevalent form of human dwelling place in Yoruba land known as the compound Agboile, a flock of houses, is fast giving way to flats and duplexes or single family bungalow houses. The the gregarious nature of the people can still be maintained. This can be achieved if and only if the values attached to sexual continence and realistic complementary husband-wife relations are resuscitated nowadays. Okay? I share giving thanks and praises for everyone that was listening to our show tonight. And I'd like you to join me next time. I'll send out some notices. I hope you catch it in time that you can be a part of the program. You can participate. And I'd like to say thank you for being on. Thank you to our sponsors, Ile Rune and Ifa Orisha Egun Talks. And we're going to continue next time. I don't know if you're going to talk about the same problem, but I wanted to talk further about what Ifa has to say about love. Okay? And I'm not talking love, just sexual love, because even that is love is defined as intimacy in a way, but the love period, how love affects us according to Ifa. All righty, dighty. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with let's see, Don't Gag Me by Fela Kuti. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
All right, people don't like to hang up. Okay, buddy. There we go. Oh boy, this was. Ooh. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night. We're over with now. We're over and done until the end. Until next time. Odabo. All right.